Welcome back to One Hit Wonderland, where we take a look at bands and artists known for only one song. Folks, one of the more annoying things that has afflicted the show in recent years is new acts taking one-hit wonders out of mothballs and getting them back on the charts. Both Billy Ray Cyrus and Snow showed up on guest stars on hit songs long after I did episodes on them. I thought 20 years should be long enough to say they're not going to have a second hit, but apparently not. And last week, lo and behold, what did I see on the charts? Of course.
UMass slapping lemonade in a Porsche. Relax.
That song immediately disappeared because it is actual shit, and Mr. Morrison only has some background vocals, so I wouldn't really count it anyway. But I still got kind of worried that I'm running out of time to do an episode while this guy is still a one-hit wonder. So, we are gonna solve that right now. What is the R&B jam of the mid-90s? Is it This Is How We Do It? No Diggity? Pony? Those are all in the conversation, certainly, but there's also one song that just refuses to go away, that continues to own the world almost 25 years later. Yes! In the summer of 1997, Mark Morrison hit number 2 on the Hot 100 with what is basically the greatest bounce-back anthem of all time, and once it returned, the Mack never left. It wasn't necessarily the biggest hit of '97, not in the year of Spice, Hanson, and the utter dominance of Bad Boy Records, but in hindsight it may be the most beloved. Everyone has adopted Return of the Mack as their jam.
Well, this is maybe the most amazing song that's ever been created.
Return of the Mack. Return of the Mack.
Well, I guess you didn't know.
Return of Hodges. Return of Hodges.
Once again.
Yes, everyone, even and especially corny white people, loves Return of the Mack. And you can credit that to the unbeatable swagger of one Mr. Mark Morrison. Do you know he's British?
I'm gonna come back, and I'm gonna come back stronger than I ever did before.
He is. In fact, according to his own artist biography, he is the most successful British R&B act of the mid-90s. Which is a sentence with a hell of a lot of qualifiers on it. And even then, I'm not sure that's actually true. But, then again, maybe he was even bigger than Seal in the mid-90s. For a while, Mark Morrison was primed to be a big goddamn deal. The man who proved that the Brits could be as fresh and fly as anyone over here. And it just didn't happen. The man may have started his career with a comeback, but the Mack never returned to these shores. He should have. He had everything he needed to be a star. What happened to the Mack? Where did you go, Mark? Where are you?
And our guest tonight is the Mack Daddy of them all, Mark Morrison.
Mark Morrison comes to us from Leicester, England, the famed home of Jamie Vardy, Stilton Cheese, the remains of Richard III, and not a whole lot of good music, unless you're a big fan of Engelbert Humperdinck. In fact, England itself is not really known for R&B in general. The Brits have made plenty of good soul music, but it tends to be very tasteful. The funkier R&B, especially starting in the 90s when it started mixing with rap music like New Jack Swing and everything that came after, the Brits tended not to make that because they have been historically terrible at rapping.
All I told those sounds is a pound. I'm crusty, la, but there's nothing down.
Ha! They've caught up since, but at the time I kind of sensed that neither the US nor the UK thought the UK should touch anything related to rap. Like, there's always this suspicion when people who aren't black try to connect to this African-American art form. Apparently this also applies if you're not American. Black or not, you're still a floofy European, right? Mark Morrison set out to change those preconceptions. He was going to be the first New Jack Swing star of the UK.
First British swing beat star, Mark Morrison.
I guess the Brits call it swing beat, whatever. And maybe he was the guy that pulled it off because he had enough experience outside of sad, rainy England. Though raised in Leicester, he was actually born in West Germany, his parents were from Barbados, and according to his wiki bio, he lived in Miami for a while. He was very inspired by American artists. He wanted to be the UK's Bobby Brown or Tupac Shakur. Boy, did he succeed, but we'll get to that. This is his first single from 1995, Crazy. Crazy is also the name of a Seal song, but you wouldn't mistake Mark Morrison for Seal. Morrison immediately set out to be the bad boy of British music. He dressed like a pimp. He'd been in prison because he'd been in a wild bar brawl where someone died. He wore handcuffs on one wrist all the time, so he definitely wasn't hiding it. The United Kingdom had never seen anyone like this. This was the state of British RnB.
If you're down, throw your hands up in the air. The Mack's back with a flavor of the year. Here we go, there's a party over here.
Mama just killed a man, put a gun against his head.
Yeah. So an actual, credible, homegrown R&B hip-hop artist, that was a pretty big deal. The British kids loved music like this, but they never had one of their own get big with it. Crazy put him on the map by going top 20. The second single didn't do as well, although I do notice he beat Puff Daddy to a golf-themed video. But then, that third single. Oh man, here we go.
Here's your raincoat back, thank you. Do I have to do it? Just say it. Do I have to say it? Say it! At last, the return of the Mack. Yes!
There was this period in the mid-90s when all the party rap had these really loud drums, like... And there's a part of me that still says that's what all rap and all music should sound like, so Return of the Mack has me right away. I found one British writer who kind of marveled at how good the song is. Not only because it sounded good, but because it sounded American. That's pretty impressive considering. In one of Mark's interviews I read, they had to define the word Mack for their readers. It's not a goddamn raincoat, you limeys. Like, I know I said the Brits caught up with hip-hop, but there's still a big divide. British rap music is so different from the hip-hop we know that it's not even really hip-hop anymore. It's its own separate thing with its own name, and you wouldn't really associate the two. But Return of the Mack pulled it off. DJs in America could play this song alongside TLC and Coolio and Puffy and Jodeci, and it would fit right in. It even starts with a sample of the Tom Tom Club's Genius of Love. Which, I mean, that was not even the only big mid-90s hit that sampled that. That's just prelude. Then Mark comes in. That is an entrance. Like, a lot of the work is being done by the beat, and Mark knows not to get in its way. He doesn't do any of those crazy Usher vocal runs or show off at all, except that bit right at the beginning. You hear that bit and you know he's on. I don't know how many times I heard Return of the Mack before I even realized it was a breakup song. Part of it is his nasal singing voice, which makes him kind of hard to understand. Honestly, I associate these kinds of vocals with funk songs that are a little looser and sillier than this, like Word Up. But Mark Morrison isn't silly. He doesn't grin, he doesn't flinch, he just gets up there looking effortlessly cool. And maybe that weird singing meant I missed some of the lyrics, but mostly it's right up there.
She said she'd never turn on me.
This is a song of heartbreak, of emotional torment. He was betrayed. He cried and cried.
Yes, I cried. Yes, I cried.
Does this sound like a song about crying to you? No, it never dawned on me to think of it that way. This is the best kind of breakup song, the Who Needed You Anyway song. I guess I kind of think of that as more of a female genre. I think I was even starting to get jealous that the ladies get all the good ones. How did I fucking miss that the fellas had this as their post-breakup stepping out song? Like, I can't even think of any others, but Return of the Mack evens the score just on its own. Like, yeah, there's also Jason Derulo's only good song, Riding Solo, but there are no hard feelings in that one.
So sorry that it didn't work out.
There's a lot more of an edge to Return of the Mack.
All the nasty things you done.
This is a revenge song. Like, you can tell why G-Eazy, who just had his own rough breakup from Halsey, is trying to use this song to fuel his own comeback. And Mark Morrison can thank G-Eazy for proving that the beat doesn't do everything, you also have to be actually cool to pull this off. Return of the Mack is supposedly a song about being laid low.
Sexual betrayal. Just like I heard it for the grapevine, Marvin Gaye. Sexual betrayal.
Cheated on, cucked, taking a giant L. But Mark is not really good at playing Heartbreak. He's great at playing the Mack. Emotional arcs are for movies, not 3-minute songs. If Mark Morrison had even remotely showed any vulnerability, this song would fall apart immediately. You wouldn't buy it. But because the beat goes so hard, you already know he's not fronting, he's not secretly still broken up inside. He's gonna bounce back so hard, it'll be like the Mack never left. He's such a Mack that there's 3 of him. This is almost not even a comeback song. It's nothing but triumph. This is the We Are the Champions of breakup songs. The most amazing thing about this song is the bridge, where we hear how and why he got dumped. Because his career wasn't taking off.
Stop lying about your big break. Stop letting me down.
This song is not just about his revenge, it is his revenge. He wrote a song about how he's gonna prove her wrong, and then the song took off and proved her wrong. That's one of the most baller moves I've ever seen. And the fact that it's so well remembered bears out how good it is, so now we have to ask the question, why didn't he return? Why couldn't he do in real life what he did in the song? Well, Mark Morrison had an amazing 1996. In the UK, Return of the Mack went #1, and it was just the first of 5 top 10 hits that year. 5 top 10 hits off your debut album is incredible. It might still be a record over there.
The Mack is back.
You know what's funny? His accent is way more noticeable on his other songs. Personally, I'm not sure if these slower songs fit him, but here's one I liked.
Listen, girl.
This is just so funny to me. This is a time when Simply Red was still one of the bigger names in British soul, and now one of the biggest songs in the country goes Get Horny. I imagine them all just dropping their teacups, the Queen fainting. You can't not like this. Remember Fun R&B? What happened to that? The thing is, none of these hit in America. This song, Moan and Groan, is his only other hit that also crossed over to the American charts, and only barely. Again, I prefer his more upbeat songs, but this, it definitely could have been bigger. Why didn't he hit? Morrison wasn't just gonna be big, he was gonna bust open the American market for the entire scene. Lots of people thought he was gonna start a new British invasion for R&B. He was primed for a lot more crossover success than he ended up with. If you're American, you probably didn't know a thing about Mark Morrison. I was a kid, but even if you were more plugged into R&B back then, you probably still didn't know. Why haven't you heard these other songs? Why didn't you know he was from England? Why hadn't you heard his accent in interviews and shit? Well, here's the thing. Mark Morrison's year was 1996. But it took a while before his people realized, oi, there might be some international appeal to this geezer. Ship Return of the Mack to America, see if they like it. Maybe send them some of these Spice Girls tapes too while we're at it. So, because of that delay, he did not hit his peak in America until the summer of '97. And Mark Morrison's 1997 was not good at all.
There's gonna be people out there that always judge me as a criminal.
You remember how he wanted to be Bobby Brown and Tupac? Well, he was, in that he was constantly in trouble with the law. There are so many things on his rap sheet that I can't even keep the timeline straight. I don't know what brought him down exactly because I have read so many conflicting reports on what did it. Was it the aforementioned bar brawl? Was it the time he tried to bring a gun onto a plane? Attacked a photographer on the street in London? Driving recklessly without a license? Was it the time he threatened a cop with a stun gun, which are super illegal in the UK? Was it the time he fled to Barbados to avoid arrest? I don't know which of these did him in, but I imagine it's hard to promote yourself overseas when you're in this much trouble at home. I'm not sure he ever even got to enjoy success in America or come do shows or promotion. I don't know if he was even allowed to leave the country.
The self-styled bad boy of music has been moved to the prison hospital at London's Wormwood Scrubs.
What I am clear on is that for one of these offenses, he got sentenced to community service and he got tired of doing it, so about a third of the way through, he got someone else to pretend to be him and do the rest. And that seems to have been the last straw. In the early months of 1998, since he couldn't be trusted with probation, he was sentenced to a year in prison.
Don't give a monkeys what it takes. Just find out who's the Mack.
In 97, he got off one last new single called Who's the Mack. I mean, that's already a bad sign, right? That kind of felt like a repeat of his biggest hit. It came out on an EP, not even a full album, and then he went to prison, and no one ever really heard of him again. Now hold on, since when does bad behavior stop an R&B singer? We were finding out way worse shit about R. Kelly at the time. His career was fine. Mark Morrison's whole thing was that he was a bad boy, right? It's not like he hurt his image. Why didn't he keep going? First off, his big post-release comeback single wasn't great.
When I saw you with him.
It was also about being cheated on, so he's repeating himself again with a theme you really don't want to repeat. And yes, there may have been a teeny tiny bit of racism involved. These stuffy British labels had never had a dangerous black man on their roster. Maybe the culture was not ready to handle that. But there may have been an even worse decision in Mark Morrison's life than criminal behavior. He signed with Suge Knight. Signing with Death Row Records has always been a bad idea, but it was at least a lucrative one for a while. By the early 2000s, though, Death Row was in bad shape. Maybe they thought Mark Morrison was going to be their comeback. Return of the Suge. But it didn't happen. In fact, after Mark signed with them, they never put out his album, or anyone's album except Dead Tupac. I kind of get the sense that Mark brought the same bad judgment to his career that he did with his personal life, and that no one really wanted to work with him anymore. After Death Row, Mark signed on to some soccer star's vanity label, and their relationship eventually devolved into legal issues. Mark eventually put out his second album independently in 2006, 10 years after Return of the Mack. And by that point, his moment was well and truly gone. He has never put out a third album. But he's also never stopped recording. He keeps putting out singles, so good for him. He also kept having trouble with the law, but that seems to be firmly in the past now. Last year, he announced he was going to run for mayor of Leicester. Good luck, my man. Well, I don't know if deserve is the word, but was he talented enough to do better? Yeah, he was. Fortunately, he seems to just not have had the professionalism to stay out of trouble. In this country, he's only known for Return of the Mack, and in his own country, he's known for blowing it with stupid antics. If he'd have just kept his head on straight, he could have been bigger than, I don't know, All Saints. But when your one song is this good, maybe you don't need to return. Return of the Mack is still one of the best songs of the 90s. And actually, you know what? Maybe that comeback actually is still around the corner. Who knows? Let's just hope someone better than G-Eazy has his back.
Times I said that I love you, you lied to me. Yes, I tried, you lied to me. All this